My name is Finn, and this happened in 2022, when I was 20 years old, living alone in a small apartment near the city railway tracks. I used to work a late-night shift at a small call centre, finishing around 1:30 a.m. almost every day. The walk from my office to my apartment was only 10 minutes, but it passed through a very quiet residential lane where almost nobody was out that late. One Tuesday night, my shift ended a little earlier than usual. The streets were extra empty, and the only sound was the distant horn of trains passing by. As I turned into my lane, I had that strange feeling that someone was watching me. At first, I ignored it, thinking I was just tired. My apartment was on the third floor of an old, slightly run-down building. There was a streetlight right opposite the building, and because of that, at night you could clearly see the windows of every floor. As I got closer, I casually looked up at my bedroom window out of habit. But the light in my room was off, and there was still a silhouette standing there. It was the outline of a man, completely still, head tilted slightly to the side as if he was staring directly down at me. I froze on the road. My first thought was that maybe I had left a jacket hanging near the window, and it just looked like a person. I took out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it toward the building. The silhouette moved. Very slowly, the head turned away from me and disappeared from the window. Every instinct told me to run, call someone, or at least wait outside. But I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe it was a neighbor's shadow. Maybe I had misseen it. The problem was, my window didn't face another window. It faced the open street. I walked up the stairs, my heart beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The building was silent, and the only light came from a weak bulb on the second-floor landing that flickered every few seconds. When I reached my floor, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My apartment door, which I always locked before leaving, was slightly open. I stood there for a few seconds, listening. There were no sounds inside, no TV, no footsteps, nothing. Just silence. I slowly pushed the door open with my foot. The living room light was off. The only light was from the street lamp spilling through the window. I whispered, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer. I picked up an old metal rod I kept near the shoe rack for safety and slowly moved toward my bedroom. The door was half open and I could see that the window was now shut. I always left it a little open for air before going to work. I pushed the bedroom door fully open with the rod. The room was empty. No one behind the door. No one in the corner. Nobody under the bed. I checked the bathroom too. Empty. For a moment I thought maybe I was really losing it. Maybe I had forgotten to lock the door. Maybe the silhouette was nothing. I convinced myself and went back to the main door to fully close it. That's when I saw it. On the inside of the door, right at eye level, were 3 long scratch marks dragged from the top of the wood almost all the way down to the handle. They were deep enough to have removed the paint. I had never seen them before. I barely slept that night. The next day I told my friend and co-worker Samir what had happened. He laughed it off and said it was probably some previous damage I had just never noticed, or maybe some drunk guy had tried to open the wrong door sometime in the past. But the next part confirmed this wasn't normal. 2 nights later, after another late shift, I was walking back home at almost the same time. As I entered my lane, I instinctively looked up at my window again. This time, there was no one there. I actually felt relieved. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement in the window right above mine, the 4th floor. There was a man standing there. But he wasn't just standing and looking out. He was facing sideways, pressed up against the glass in a way that looked wrong, like his face and hands were flattened against it. Even from the road, I could see that his mouth was open unnaturally wide. I stopped again, staring. After a few seconds, he slowly turned his head toward me, like he already knew I was looking. The streetlight flickered, and for 1 single second, everything went dark. When it came back on, the window was empty. The next morning, I went straight to the building watchman and asked him who lived in the flat above mine. He gave me a confused look and said, "Nobody lives there. That flat is locked. The owner died last year before you moved in." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I asked if anyone had a spare key for maintenance. He shook his head and said the owner's son had taken the key months ago and hadn't returned. The room had been closed since. That evening, when I returned from work, there was an old lady from the second floor standing near the entrance. She stopped me and asked casually if I liked staying in my flat. I said yes, but I was still a little uneasy. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You should keep your curtains closed at night," she said. "Sometimes he looks into the wrong window." I asked her what she meant by that. She said that years ago a man had lived in the now locked fourth-floor flat. He had severe mental health issues and would often stand at the window all night, staring at people on the street. One night, he followed a woman who lived on the third floor, the same floor as me, and attacked her inside her apartment when she came home late. Nobody heard anything until morning. He was found at his window the next day, calmly staring outside. He never went to jail, but he was taken away. The flat had been more or less abandoned since. The old lady said some nights she still saw a figure in that window, even though nobody was supposed to be there. After that conversation, I could not relax in that apartment again. I started keeping my curtains closed all the time and slept with the lights on. For a while, nothing strange happened. No silhouettes, no doors left open. Then, on my last night in that building, something woke me up around 3 a.m. It was a light tapping sound. Not loud, but consistent. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was the pipes or a neighbour. Then I realised it wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from my window. I stayed in bed, staring at the curtain, listening. The tapping grew slower, but heavier, like someone was dragging their nails or knuckles across the glass. Every hair on my body stood up. I knew that whoever or whatever was on the other side of that window was not just randomly there. It was deliberate. I didn't get up. I didn't move. I just picked up my phone with a shaking hand and called Samir. When he answered in a sleepy voice, I whispered, "I think someone is at my window." He told me to stay on the call and not go near it. After maybe a minute, the tapping completely stopped. The next morning, I packed a bag, went straight to a friend's place, and started looking for another room. Within a week, I had moved out of that building for good. To this day, I still don't know if what I saw was a real person somehow getting into that locked flat, a memory of what used to be there, or something worse. But sometimes, when I walk home late at night in my new neighbourhood, I don't look up at my window anymore, because now I'm more afraid of what I might see than of what I won't.